Hello and welcome to Animal Ethics in Action, a YouTube channel that aims to look at current affairs, the sort of things that we read, think, talk about, from the point of view of non-human animals. I am Natalia Duran. I'm involved in the running of 3 animal organizations: Urban Squirrels, Animal Aid and Pan-Orthodox Concern for Animals. I'm also a bit of a philosopher among amateurs and amateur among philosophers. I like to dig just below the surface of current affairs with a philosophical spade. If this approach interests you, also here goes. The springboard I have chosen for unpacking veganism is the following story reported by the BBC. A vegan meat factory is going to open in Lincolnshire in England. It's called Plant and Bean. It will be the biggest of its kind in Europe, and it also has its kind of eye on the arable land around it so that the raw materials don't have to travel too far. And it will create up to 500 jobs. In an interview to the BBC, the chief executive of the company said, actually, may I ask you to remember this following thing that I'm going to say? The chief executive of this vegan meat company said, well, basically, like it or not, if you're serious about the planet, you are going to have to consume less animal meat and more plant-based products. So in order to kind of go onto animal ethics, let's briefly systematize the reasons why people might want to go vegan. Number 1 is, of course, for the animals. If you eat meat, quite clearly the animal has to die. If you eat dairy products, then, well, the male calves are often killed, and dairy cows typically do not have a very nice life. If you eat eggs, then also, well, the male chicks are killed, and the laying hens have usually quite a miserable life and a very short life in any case. I suppose it is theoretically possible to eat animal products without cruelty if you eat roadkill or if you eat eggs from rescued hens. Although there is also a dairy project called Ahimsa that produces milk without killing the male calves. But really, these are the kind of exceptions that more or less prove the rule, that if you love animals, you are not going to eat them. This is me being radical as well as logical, really. Reason number 2 is for your own health. We are told that in the Western society we already eat 3 times as much meat as is good for us. And some meats, processed meats such as bacon and sausage, are plainly dangerous. They can cause cancer. And that's why the World Health Organization places them in class 1 as a carcinogen. Well, whatever smoking is to your lungs, bacon is to your digestive system. Reason number 3 is the environment. Meat production causes or contributes to greenhouse gases more than all the forms of transport combined. There is a fairly large research base for that, but the seminal study is Steinfeld et al. 2006, commissioned by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. And reason number 4, sometimes overlooked, is the religious one. The Orthodox Church, for example, requires fasting of the faithful for, well, about half of the year, really. There are 4 Lent-like periods and also Wednesday and Friday of every week. And fasting in the Orthodox context means, well, among other things, spiritual things, it means abstaining from animal products. Buddhism and veganism are a very natural marriage, and even more so Jainism. So these are the 4 main reasons for going vegan: for the animals, for your health, for the planet, for your spiritual health. From here we can move to a philosophical discussion proper, to an animal ethics discussion proper, and consider the difference between intrinsic and instrumental moral value of non-human animals. I will explain. Basically, are we going to be good to animals because of their intrinsic worth, because of, well, they're simply our fellow citizens of this planet? Or are we going to be nice to them as a means to another end, a means to another, well, good end, like our health or the planet? Now, we intuitively, I believe, perceive the intrinsic one to be more valuable and primary. And even more so if we start transferring this intrinsic versus instrumental paradigm onto our other relationships, human relationships. Consider, for example, a young adult living at home. The intrinsic paradigm is that they are a family and they all love each other. The instrumental paradigm is that it's rent-free. or a friendship. The intrinsic paradigm would be that, well, you enjoy each other's company. The instrumental paradigm is that this person is perhaps influential and somehow useful to you. And again, here, even so, we see that the intrinsic is the correct paradigm. That is our intuition, but the ancient philosopher Aristotle takes this even further. He carries on with a friendship example and says that, well, a friend is, of course, somebody who will lend you money if you need it, who will give you somewhere to stay. But if the friendship exists only for the sake of these things, then it's not much of a friendship and it will not last very long anyway. So for Aristotle, not only is the intrinsic primary, but the instrumental depends on it and will not last long if it is uncoupled from it. So we can transfer this instrumental versus intrinsic paradigm onto veganism as well. And we see that, yes, it is, of course, true that being vegan is good for our health, both spiritual and physical, and it is good for the planet. But if it is uncoupled from the intrinsic, for our respect for animals as our fellow citizens on this planet, it may not last very long. It becomes vulnerable. For example, your health. You may think that, well, there are some animal products that are healthy. And on the other hand, there are some vegan products, processed vegan products, that are not healthy. There is such a thing as vegan junk food. There's McPlant even, as McDonald's. McPlant, I'm told, is a real thing. And in terms of the planet, you may start thinking about reforming the farming industry somehow, or some kind of offsetting scheme, and your veganism will therefore crumble. Whereas if it stays focused on the animals, it will bring all the other things with it. So let us go back full circle to the thing I asked you to remember. The chief executive of the new vegan meat factory in Lincolnshire, in his interview said, well, basically he used the instrumental argument, didn't he? If you're serious about the planet, you are going to consume plant-based products. Was he wrong in doing so? Well, I'd like to know your opinion in the comments, but I believe that he was right in that context. Because he was speaking through the BBC, he was speaking to the general public and really was trying to sell the idea of veganism. He was trying to give people something that they can relate to. And that, I think, is the correct place for the instrumental argument. Vegan advocacy. If you talk to people about being vegan, you can say, well, it's good for your health, good for the planet. And I, for example, in the Orthodox context, I could say, well, what about our fasting rules, etc. But ultimately, in order to be solid, I believe it still has to be about the animals. In other words, the instrumental is a very good place to start, but a terrible place to finish. I'm, however, drawing to a finish here. Thank you very much for listening. Please comment, like, subscribe if you feel like it, and I will see you next week, hopefully.